So we'll just start the meeting. It's 5 o'clock.
Oh,
No, you got 1 minute.
1 minute.
A minute.
Boy,
I have one more,
we need to find a way to change that clock so that it actually rings at 5.
one more revision
Okay.
that no one else has.
Just slide them over.
Here.
There we go. You got it? All right.
All the other ones that are on the docket, we've already looked at, I guess.
Yeah, just, if we can get through them all, I mean, there's a lot.
Well, there's just there's a lot of pages is what it
Yeah.
is. That food
Yeah.
vendor one, I never anticipated it being as large as it is,
Right.
but I think it was just such a strange expanse of things. Like there was just so much meat there that we never addressed. The area health kind of got their fingers into it and
Yeah.
wanted a piece of it. So I think it expanded more than I think anybody anticipated.
Yeah, and that's okay, just whether or not we'd actually make it through it.
I know, that's just a lot.
So,
It is right.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you, Rick? Hello, Rich.
Been looking for me?
Oh, I've been looking for you. You're on my list.
Yeah. Well, you found me.
And it's funny, it's actually involving garbage.
There you go.
No, it's called solid waste.
Oh, I'm sorry. Waste management, I'm sorry.
Solid waste.
No, what I'm gonna talk to you is garbage.
Wasted solids.
All right, so we'll,
Which one you want to do? 5
start
o'clock
the
now?
meeting together, or we'll open the meeting, just 5 o'clock now.
Yeah.
And Ray is here, so we can start.
That's fine. No, you can't.
So we have
Start
some
without-
minutes to approve, and I did, so I know for that, did you get my, that's fine. You got
Okay.
2 words to change.
Okay.
So,
Because I already have a-
I'm on the team.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Approve the minutes.
All right, I guess I'll have to second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So let's start with the food truck. There. So this is different. So what was in our packet and what Heather sent to us, I think was,
Yeah.
good. A little technical. So if we probably went to, unfortunately, the pages aren't numbered, but if we go to fees, I love the language in terms of, and I think we all agreed that rather than setting a dollar amount, that we would basically say that the fees, permit or license.
Which one, where are you?
We're on the food truck,
Yeah, really, what page?
so they're not numbered, Vic, so
Yeah, I
it's,
know.
Page 3,
so is it,
third page in on the ordinance.
Yeah, fee, yeah, I see it, yeah. I crossed out
thank
what
you.
was there before. And we put in fees for a permit and or license shall be established by the city council.
Which I think is great.
Which is great. It leaves it, instead of having to readdress it every
Right.
other year, because, hey, listen, times have gone up, it's great. What a great open end.
I think what we would have to do though is to make sure that that fee was established and.
Well, you gotta make sure you do it,
Exactly.
Well,
you know.
listen, at least it's out of my hands.
Right. So, Heather or Carol will need to make sure it's put on the agenda when this is gone through.
And then the
process.
next
I think
page is the same
A
thing.
good procedure might be
Yes.
that annually,
Just to review it, an annual
Well-
review.
if, the departments that have fees in ordinances then present to the city council the fees for the next fiscal year on an annual basis. If we establish that as the procedure, then every year we're presenting to the council whether we're gonna keep the fees recommendation,
Mhm.
to either keep the fees the same or to raise them.
Mhm.
If we do that, internally administratively,
Mhm.
so like our fees for waste containers. If you kind of think how we do the miscellaneous fees for the WPCA,
Yeah.
we present them every year, whether we change them or not. These are the fees that we recommend to the board
That's part
for,
of the budget process.
as part of the budget process.
Right.
Mhm.
So, it really wouldn't be, it makes sense that it's kind of part of the budget process, because then it's a number that's projected potentially for revenue. So if the department heads that are that have ordinances that have fees, we either present it, individually. So like Sergeant Boldus would present fees for the food truck ordinance or whatever ordinances that are under his purview, or we could do it as a group.
But that's more of an agenda item for
The city council
city
on an
council,
annual
right,
basis.
yeah, right.
Because the trash one, I wrote the same way, as the fees as established by the city council.
So it's more or less just something that we need to do yearly, is to make sure that we come to one of the meetings to just go, as part of our annual check-in,
Right,
that
right.
we don't feel that at this time there's any reason to change. So yeah, correct. So we're not wording anything differently. It is
Okay.
something to just address.
Yeah.
The language,
Language is good.
from our
It's just-
side,
yes.
It's procedure, it's not ordinance.
Yep.
Yeah, I would think if you were gonna, project a increase in the fees, whatever
Yeah.
it might be.
Right.
And you're gonna do it in your budget, so you'd wanna actually get that modification or get that approval from the council prior to the budget being passed.
Right.
Okay.
because when we established, so like, for example, so like one Fund 74, which is public works revenue, we have a line which is miscellaneous fees. So if you know, so for example, that we're going to raise the fee for solid waste containers or recommend that it get raised, I don't know, say $25. And we have 400 of them out there. We know, okay, then we need to project that as revenue in the budget that then gets presented in the future for approval. So I would see we would do it probably something early on in the budget.
Well, that's what I mean, it
Yeah.
would probably be a budget.
Maybe
This
in
is a fiscal
February.
year, July 1 through June 30th. We
Right.
can almost know that that's an assumption, we know.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I don't think we need to change anything in the ordinance.
Not in here,
How
no,
it's-
absolutely
yeah.
No, I don't think so.
So how, what the process is?
Yeah,
you know,
I think, and I think the benefit to that is it forces us
pay attention.
to pay attention to the fees.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That,
And we don't have to pay attention.
right, so that, they haven't been, I mean, the extra container fee for solid waste has never changed from when it was originally set.
Right.
And yet it cost us almost $250 to collect that container.
Okay.
And we're, building department fees, it's
Yeah.
all, I think it's all of those.
Okay.
So there actually there's two other places.
Yeah.
Where we say city council.
Yep.
158.6.
Yeah.
The next one, that 158.3-7, I just put a, I don't know what that's for, or whether we need it.
This was, I don't believe so. So in going back, I looked back to see, and I had mirrored off of some of the information from New Haven. And New Haven does, but they have a lot, again, we're talking a very large crowd. And they have that one that's down by the seaside where they actually have them put up a bond because there's a lot more liability established with them. They're in there, they have electric that runs to them. So they have a lot more potential of damages or loss or something that comes back to the city. Again, we're talking somebody that's pushing a cart that's selling a hot dog.
Yeah, so
Yeah, there's no reason to
we could
bond.
probably take it out.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is-
Can I interject
Yeah.
a little bit?
Yeah.
No.
Before you, oh,
Have I called you, Ray?
no,
I hope nobody's on the line. Is there anybody on the line?
I think of it like when we issue street opening permits, every contractor has to submit a surety bond for working in the street.
Yeah,
And
this is a food
Yeah,
truck.
but then this is just.
but it's working in the street.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, is there potential for damage to city property?
Yeah.
Is there? No, I mean, that's what that surety bond is
Yeah,
protecting you
That's what
from.
it is. It's again, it's tying in $1,000, but is that gonna be a significant
Yeah,
deterrent
you're
to
opening up the
any?
street or something. Here, it's a truck parked on the street. Yeah, I don't,
Okay.
I think it just complicates it.
And it's a small, you're talking about food trucks, which are a small business, and I don't want to deter them opportunities that they might have.
Yeah,
You know, when you're doing street work, you're talking about a
Yeah,
larger.
we're talking about
business.
actually physically altering the.
yeah, I think that's a
Okay.
different situation.
Okay. All right,
It's not my ordinance.
so
So then, I don't know that,
I'll make it difficult. We don't make a change to learnable. Keep going to that cross-reference.
oh, I see. How about?
Oh, just before that,
158,
any
14.
employee who is not a veteran is subject to a 25.
One number.
Yeah, it's, under, it's in J.
Oh, I see,
It's
yeah.
in J of 15811,
It says,
about the veteran fee.
All right, what I-
That they get bring it to city
again,
council.
what I put in there is, I just highlighted that because this is this has to do with veterans, I guess. These are people who are exempt. These people are exempt from the provisions of the chapter. Veterans, apparently.
Yeah.
And, but then it says that any employee who is not a veteran is subject to the $25 fee. And again, I just put in there city council. I don't know if that's another city council issue.
Yeah, because that's really establishing the number where the number isn't established until city council determines what number that is.
That's what I'm thinking.
So, yes.
So I
So
just
it's
put city
being more
council there
generic.
with a question mark.
How about, yeah, who's not a veteran is subject to the fee
Established by city council.
established by
Yep.
city council or established by the city of Torrington.
Is
Yeah,
that
all right.
already covered in the previous though?
Well, except for, well, yes, technically it is, but it says that any employee who is not a veteran, but again, it's kind of a redundant sentence because again, we're talking about in J, it's resident veterans. So if you're not a veteran, then obviously you're
You don't-
subject to the
yeah,
fee.
You're subject. to
So
the
you're
fee.
subject to a fee.
So you
So
probably could take that.
just,
out.
just
Why don't we
eliminate,
just take it out?
just take the sentence out altogether.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, take it out. That's a good point.
So I don't have to pay a fee to own a food truck?
No, you're fine.
Cool.
You're good.
Where can I put it?
Wait,
And I
We
have
sell
it
tacos.
recording too,
anywhere.
so I can go back
anywhere
and listen to it.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Oh, so we should, no side chatter, is that it?
No, you're fine.
Is it an omnidirectional mic?
We'll find out.
I don't know what it is. We'll find out. I'm the only one that's gonna listen to it.
158-14.
I was just curious,
What about-
the rest of
Is there
those.
something before that?
Yeah, M, after M, well, it's part of M, I think, cross-reference streets and sidewalks, chapter 180 is highlighted, that's why.
Where are you?
At the same page we were on, go to M, and and it says any person selling
Yeah.
agricultural goods, and then go to the next page,
Yep.
and there's a highlight.
And for cross-reference streets and sidewalks.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do we need that?
Yeah, I don't know what that's for. Yeah, but I think I just,
I got nothing.
Okay.
I got nothing.
I think we crossed
I
it
may-
out.
Cross it out.
Yeah, it may be crossed off because I'm not sure why we'd reference streets and sidewalks.
Yeah, that's why.
Nope.
It's chapter 180.
So Heather, you realize our numbers are gonna change since we deleted that whole section on bonds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so then,
With 14, right? 158-14.
yeah, these are just definitional issues. I don't know. It says no street vendor. And I don't know anywhere in the ordinance that we defined street vendor. I
We
don't
didn't
think,
do that in the beginning?
I don't think so.
Fine.
No, we divide a food vendor, but not quote unquote a street.
I mean, that's my lawyer.
Yeah, I love that lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean, if you're gonna use names, you gotta keep them consistent.
Yep.
So can we just
So-
say no vendor, since we've defined in the
Yeah.
first food vendor, ice cream vendor?
No vendor.
No vendor, and it depends what kind of vendor they are, and that's defined in the front, right?
That's
Correct. So we have food vendor, ice cream vendor, or itinerant vendor, which then also includes an itinerant merchant or transient merchant.
So then, the more I think about the next part of this, it probably was not right to say. I said can we use a different word than vend? But if we do that, we have to change everything. But my point was, usually when you say vend, I assume that means sell, right? And so it says no vendor shall vend.
Yeah.
Within 10 feet of any driveway. So I guess I'm happy with leaving it that way because because vend is used throughout all the next paragraphs.
Right.
Otherwise, we have to change the whole thing.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm okay with it. I think everybody would be in agreement that vending is the same as selling stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Offer small items, especially food for sale.
so I would
Sell
say,
something.
all right, I'm gonna just forget that.
I don't need to be, but it could be a vendor that's actually just distributing things for free.
Could be where there would be no charge.
Right. I mean, that's why I sort of like the word vend and not sell.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying, just leave it the way it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you would still need a permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, right.
Then let's look at the next sentence. No, the way it read before, it said any vendor will not sell any like items. And I'm just thinking that, I just tried to
Yeah.
restate it a little bit. I think we all know what it means.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say no such vendor shall sell any items within 250 feet of a brick and mortar building selling the same item.
Which is the
Do we
big
say it
piece
that
of
way?
this,
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And we agree 250 feet is sufficient.
Well, that's up to
Yeah,
you
I don't,
guys.
yeah, I don't know.
So-
What,
This was
Can it be-
It was all over the map. So West Hartford had different criterias, New Britain had different criteria, New Haven had different criteria. Some of them were like 1,000 feet. But again, we're talking about something New Haven sized. That's, I mean, you go one block here at 1,000 feet. Where here, I mean, we did 1,000 feet, you'd be trying to, do something in total field by the time you're out of the way.
Right.
That's a pretty good distance, is 1,000 feet. So I figured what was reasonable, but it's far enough away that a person who does pay the property tax to have a brick and mortar building, that is gonna be far enough away that where if I'm going for a pizza, am I going to stop at Joe's hot dog stand before I get to go get my pizza because they're literally side by side? I go to walk in, I'm like, you know what? Smell that hot dog smells better. I'm gonna go here instead. I just wanted to provide a little bit of security to that brick and mortar store that has been there for 20 years, as opposed to the guy that is the itinerant vendor or the transient vendor that it shows up, pulls up, and can just drop down for the day. Kind of, I don't want to say steal away business, but lure business away. Again, that's part of the competition, and I get that. But do we also have to literally put them side by side and there's no consequence? I think by trying to keep a little bit of distance, it's helpful. A number, that's entirely up to you guys.
So I wanted to ask you a question, Ray. So, I mean, so a storefront in downtown Torrington, what's the square footage? Would it be 250 feet? Or is that
Typically, if you looked at the peddler, that's probably 250 feet,
The whole
the
peddler?
whole
Yeah.
peddler.
So the whole block?
Sasso's is probably 30 feet.
Okay, like, I just needed to have.
So it's like a block.
A measurement
Yeah.
status. So
Yeah.
again, so if you were to vend, let's just say, so like Sasso's a perfect example. So you'd be able to put something on, not particularly because it's a parking meter, but if you were to park on City Hall Ave, you'd probably be safe that you'd be outside that 250-foot scope.
Right, I needed to have a visual.
So that's reasonable, right?
Or
So-
even if they were on Franklin Square, Franklin Plaza, and Sasso's there still
Yeah.
far enough away.
Kind of think of if you want
But then
to
you
visualize
Yeah. But then you
Um,
also have.
2.5 telephone pole lengths.
Mhm.
Let's do it.
Typical telephone poles are 100 feet apart.
That's interesting. I wonder if we're gonna get, some comment on this, if people are paying attention to this.
Mhm.
So my only question, and I kind of was going to your example, is when you use the word the same item.
Yeah, exactly. Because-
So I'm selling hot dogs. Sasso sells pizza.
Mhm.
Am I selling the same item?
No,
Then I could be within
Closer.
200 feet of Sasso's.
Is that right? Because it says like items.
Mhm.
but be wrong with that.
Well, it goes through as example. So
Right.
is the guy walking down the street who had intended to get pizza?
Is the itinerant, or is the transient vendor luring him away, but yet that guy has no skin in the game because he doesn't pay the light bill, doesn't pay all the other overages
Would he then
that are there every
take
day.
it away? I mean,
It's a tough battle.
Kind of one of those ones is like,
I don't know how you're gonna.
I don't
really
know how you
that.
define it
Unless
exactly.
Where do you put
something
something else
like
into that?
the same or similar or something along those lines, but then who decides that?
Who decides what's
Yeah.
similar?
Well, someone would have to file a complaint and then it would
We don't
be,
want
it,
it, yeah.
right, then it would be decided what that meant, right?
Yeah, I would say.
Right?
The only thing that's helpful to this, and again, which kind of helps, is the defining of the fact that they can't park anywhere downtown that has street parking that is parking meter, and those things. So really, it's already pushing you
Oh,
out
yeah.
of the downtown area. So you almost partially eliminate that to some degree. I mean, if Zach and Lou's Barbecue, you turn around and now you put a hot dog vendor next to it, okay, you're right, they really don't cross paths. Is there really a 250-foot issue there? Don't know, but probably not, because they aren't selling a like item. If Zach and Lou's has hot dogs on the menu, well then yes, then we already have the problem. So they can either sell something else or a taco vendor can go there instead, and then you'd be okay. So, I mean, I guess it would really be more, it kind of kept downtown a little bit more secure because most of our area, at least surrounding for the most part, is metered.
Yeah.
Or it's on street that doesn't have legal parking anyway, and you couldn't put your vending truck there anyhow. So it does kind of at least secure somewhat downtown. East Main, you're not gonna be able to park. Any of the state roads you can't park on anyway and do any type of vending. So it eliminates Route 4, 183, 272. So we've old Route 100. So everybody thinks of Winstead Road is not really a state road. It's a state road all the way up to Winstead. So I mean, it's,
Main Street too.
yes, it eliminates Main Street. So you can't do
Yeah.
anything on Main Street. So you've eliminated the vast majority
right.
of your main
Yeah.
commerce areas.
Yeah.
So it does, I think the statute or the ordinance almost kind of helps keep itself in check. So it just kind of keeps a little bit of
And I
separation
think
from the
Armin's
food in
right.
general.
There's gonna be situations where people are gonna complain about something. They're gonna have a hearing or whatever it is that we're gonna,
And we'll define it if it comes to it.
or we change,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
just,
we can change it again some other times.
Or it might be a case, it might be something where it has to be case by case basis because there's so many things that you could sell or vend.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I mean, you can't include it, I mean, the ordinance would be,
Well, that's.
700
okay, so if
pages
you take
long.
out the Main Street, and you take out, any things that are street parking, I think about Franklin Plaza. And, particularly, if there's a vendor there, they don't have to be a truck,
No,
a food
correct,
vendor.
right.
And they sell hot dogs.
Yeah.
Because they have a hot dog stand. And so, if you take that away and they can push their cart on there, how is that gonna relate to like Bocce's or the new?
Well, I think
Geppetto's.
Do you
Crumbs.
have anything in there
Crumbs.
for
Yeah, I mean,
city
coffee.
sanctioned events?
Are they open now?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, because,
yeah, because city.
so we
sanctioned
bring
events-
food trucks to Franklin Plaza,
exactly.
City
It's
sanctioned.
Right.
farther down in that parking.
right, as a city sanctioned event.
Think
We have
there's something
farmers
about city
market,
sanction.
we have
I
people
know.
selling wares
Yeah.
and goods, and we have food trucks there, but,
You also have
they
the
sell
same problem.
pizza or, right?
Yeah.
So do you have something that if it's
Correct.
a city sanctioned event or a city
This doesn't-
authorized
I would say
event,
this
because the
doesn't
event would be
apply.
authorized by the Park and Rec Commission through their application
Right.
process,
Yeah.
they would be exempt.
All right, yeah, so you could say maybe any event that is authorized by the park, sanctioned by the Park and Rec Commission, does not, does not have to meet the criteria.
I mean, all the
to-
fees apply.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to meet to
Have
the,
meet-
meet
have to
the,
meet the distance
the
requirement.
distance requirement, right?
When
Maybe
would
so-
that be?
So if we had an event at Franklin Plaza and you had a truck that,
Well, how about the beer garden? So we
Yeah,
have
beer
Oktoberfest down in Franklin
Yeah.
Street Plaza.
but then you have Bocce's that sells beer.
The
you
Bocce's and
have-
Geppetto's that will be open hopefully by then that sells
You have
both
all of
beer
those
and wine.
restaurants
Are they then
backed
able,
up
is that a
against it.
violation and now they can't do it because
Sell
it's a
the
city
same stuff.
sanctioned?
Yeah, no, I see what
Or
you're
they
saying.
could be one of the vendors,
Correct. They could be a vendor,
right?
but they just need to, again, how do you,
I'm just thinking that the runner guy in the street can't do certain things, but the city can do it if it wants.
Yeah, yeah. It's a touchy one. I think the
Yeah.
Parks and Rec need to really, maybe get a copy of this section. Well, a copy of the
Yeah.
whole ordinance in
Correct.
advance, so that, you know,
Yeah.
they can. I
I
don't
mean, it's
know.
a good question.
but I guess ultimately, like you said, though, it's gonna come down to somebody having a hearing about it, where, again, if Bocce and Geppetto's think it's great because they have a beer garden, but everybody goes down there to buy food, it was still a win.
Right.
Who would then make the complaint about it? It's just saying, that,
Well,
listen, it's
right.
making it essentially, you shouldn't be within 250 feet if you're a vendor. It is a private event or I
Yeah.
guess you're buying tickets, so it is a private event, sponsored event. So, I don't know.
On
That's
public property.
on public property, which makes it difficult. So I don't know. I don't know I don't know if there's a simple answer to that.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, maybe see what happens at a public hearing or something. I don't know, they could always make changes later too, for that matter.
Mhm.
But I want to make sure, you know, in all transparency, that Parks and Rec, you know, sort of knows
Sure.
this is
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Well, maybe when
there
you're done
is-
here, we can send whatever we have to them.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that would be good because then,
because if we don't put that language in,
Yeah.
then, you know, this would apply, you know.
Right.
to
But I also don't want to deter that because, again, I think that
the events of it.
I think Ed Canato's had some, a good success with the Oktoberfest that was down there. I think he drew in some people there.
He wants to do more events down there?
Correct. And I think it's great that the plaza is being utilized for those quality things down there that do draw people, which do draw more commerce.
I think businesses would be more, I think they'd be more likely to complain about a vendor that is there like weekly or daily than something like a once a year type thing, because
Mhm.
a once a year type thing will then bring some people who don't go downtown to say, hey, I didn't know that restaurant was there.
Right.
We need to go to it, for dinner one night.
Good
You know what
point.
I mean? Right?
Yep.
So I think it's maybe the food truck that's there all the time that would draw the complaint, but not the one-time event.
And I think in writing this ordinance, I think that's what,
Right.
you know, you're thinking of
Yep.
more so
Right.
than.
Yeah. So again, you could
The
almost
One
just
that
put it.
shows up every day at 10:30, sets up,
Yes.
breaks down at 2 o'clock,
Yeah,
I think the exemption
So
would be
do
a
you think
sponsored,
we
a
should
privately
write?
sponsored event or city-sponsored event.
Yeah,
Because again, privately sponsored because Ed Canato's not part of,
Right.
the city.
you know, that, the exemption would be any city-sponsored
oh, I see.
events.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what you were alluding to, right?
Right, so I mean, we have events at Co Park and, kind of all of
Well,
those,
we have the arts festival that's coming in,
and we don't even pay taxes.
August 20th. August 20th, we have the arts festival. It's gonna have all of downtown shut down. They're gonna have food vendors and everything else. Well, right there would be a conflict if it was just in general.
But is that a city-sponsored event?
Again, is it city and privately sponsored event? If you have the area shut down, I rented the park. Yes, it is city owned, but I rented Franklin Street Plaza for a private event.
So you're saying, so it's a partnership because the city is allowing the park to be shut down
Correct.
for that.
For this event, because they've already paid a certain fee. And again, not to use Ed over again, but he had that area locked off and purchased, they had tickets purchased, and it wasn't just a random itinerant merchant coming in. This was a closed door event. You had to purchase tickets either at the door or right there. You came in, it was all contained and you couldn't leave. So it was really limiting
And I think those vendors had to pay a fee.
to be within it.
Actually.
Yes, so there's a lot of different, wheels spinning on those as far as, but that Park and Rec requires, you have to have a small permit from the city for alcohol and liquor commission. So there's a lot of different pieces to that kind of tie into that. And I hate to use alcohol and liquor as far as, but just because it's easier for sake of use. Would it be a private and city sponsored event? Because if it is a private event, do you then say that, hey, you can't shut down the park, you can't have something at Cove Park because Joe's Pizza and Wings across the street? Well, you can't serve wings.
Mhm.
I don't
I
know.
mean, still, similar.
158-15 cover you?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
Says no license issued pursuant to the provisions of the chapter shall be construed so as to permit the vending without city approval.
So when Park and Recs approves it, they're bypassing the ordinance.
The ordinance.
So that way then, so if you're vending in the park and then you go outside of the scope of it, because as long as Park and Rec approve the event, then the ordinance doesn't really apply when it comes
Use
to
that.
conduct.
As
Your
a way out.
defense, As a way out.
So
Yeah,
just adding a sentence.
If,
yeah,
if somebody challenges it,
yeah, you could
Yeah.
always refer to that.
I think we're better to put it in versus.
Yeah.
So how do we wanna word this?
He's saying that maybe we're covered by the 158
Oh,
farther down.
Yeah,
no license issue.
yeah.
Okay.
As a way, we could always refer to that, and
Yeah.
then somebody could say, well, that's not good enough, but at least it's.
yeah, because they have to go
Something in
through
there.
that whole application
Yeah.
process. They have to pay a fee, $1,000 fee to,
Yeah,
reserve Franklin
point.
Plaza.
yeah, it's a good point.
I just think that merchants, going back to what I said, I think they're gonna just be concerned more about the person that's there every day rather than
I agree.
the one-time event where,
Right.
actually, you go downtown, people who don't normally go downtown say, hey, I didn't know that store was there, I didn't know it was there. Now they're gonna go back to visit that store, right? I mean, that's my thought process on the whole thing.
Mhm.
I would want more people downtown if I were a business.
I think you
So
would
if one day I lose a little business, I hope to
Yeah.
gain more from that.
Well, I think maybe even the contrary is they may generate more business
That's what I'm
because
saying.
the event draws
Right.
people to
Right.
the area.
I mean, we are.
That maybe they don't want to eat out of a food truck.
Ice cream stores downtown now.
Yeah, you got rolling ice cream, you got, the fudge factory, right, almost right there.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you put a bunch of different things all together, but it still seems to be clicking and working for the moment, but.
All right.
Want me to
So-
clean that up and then send it to
Yeah,
everybody?
I don't think it hurts to reiterate, I know that we have the reference down below, but to have some sentence in that paragraph, either to refer to,
Yeah,
158-15.
right.
No, you mean,
Or even put it like under the exemptions,
yes, yeah,
just see like refer to, that 158-15.
Put it under there.
City or private sponsored events on city property, would be exempt from the area of conduct restricted. At least then it kind of just,
Yeah.
again, if someone's going through all the checks and balances, like you said, Park and Rec, applications that you went through liquor commission or whoever else you're going through. So it's a kind of a closed event that isn't, it's a one-time deal. It's not like they're down there every day, like you said, every day,
Yeah, that would be a
that are
problem.
there for 3 hours and then leave. Vic, you had one thing way back in the very beginning at 158-2. Yep, just after your definitions. Just to clean it up, and again, you said it was confusing. We thought we were talking about itinerant and transient.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and you're right. It's, I don't know why every food establishment, it should have been itinerant and transit merchants.
All right.
It does not need to be every food establishment, because for crying out loud, we need to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna.
Yep, just needs to be cleaned.
All
Yep.
right, and so then, getting back to the exemptions, let's look at,
Yep. Didn't want to skip on red.
yeah. no.
so you would like to say, any city sponsor, is that what we're,
I think any city approved, I think using some of the same language, city.
Sanction.
Yeah, or city sanctioned event,
City sanctioned event.
would that do it?
Where are you at?
Any
well, we're
city,
still on the question of
Still on that same one, 158,
whether-
14.
Just the way to better define it, so.
And would like to include,
It's a sentence.
Oh, under 14, so just to add, you know how you had it covered under the other, but put it in one of the definitions, under the exemptions. So just to add in that any city sanctioned sponsored event, or any city sanctioned
Event.
event is exempt from areas of restriction. Because I think that just says exemptions altogether, where it's just saying that it's exempt from 158.
Right.
so any city sanctioned event
Yep.
would be,
Exempt from 158-14. So that way, then that clears up of the 250-foot requirement. And then at least it's, and we're not talking, it would be a one-time event, and we don't have an event in the city that goes on for 6 months. So I mean, I think that would be where everybody would start to balk at.
okay, so we put it together, we can always change it again, so.
All right.
I really appreciate it.
Because you know that
I was just laughing.
the events, you know, a lot of times these metered areas are used for vendors, right? They park in metered areas sometimes during events that happen when the streets are shut down. Correct. So that's a violation of this, so we would have to, so that's why it needs to be, that's another thing why it needs to be included, right? Because they take up parking spots during these events sometimes because where else are they gonna go?
But there are times that when they close down the street.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna do that again, but.
Yeah.
We used to close down Main Street
Right.
and then the vendors would be able to come in.
Correct, and once that is, because that becomes a city sponsored or
Yeah.
something along those
Right.
lines, but then once the city street is shut
That's what I'm
down
saying.
and the parking meters don't apply, and then
Right.
technically you can park legally on the street, and then
Right.
you're all right.
Right.
So it's, and I get a road closure permit, which the state then says it's okay, that's fine, that
Mhm.
portion of the street is now yours today.
Right.
Yeah.
So then does it technically fall outside the scope of it? Well, yeah, it's not a state road well, it's still a state road, but now it's kind of open to what the city is going to allow within those confines.
Yeah.
So as long as the city's approving it, I think you'll be all right.
All right,
Okay,
we'll
All right.
finish that one up.
so
Much better.
I think what I'd like to do is just for each one, maybe get an approval or a motion to approve the food ordinance as amended. And it would give us the opportunity in the same motion possibly to then set a public hearing.
Okay. All right.
Wanna make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the food truck ordinance with the changes discussed at this meeting. Is that sufficient?
Yeah,
motion?
with amendments or.
With amendments, okay, with amendments as discussed at this meeting.
And to find a appropriate date.
And to
for-
find an appropriate time for a public hearing.
We're looking at June, just to let you know.
You know, that's what I mean. That's what I
Amazing
feel like if we could do this here,
Yeah.
it would move us along, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll do that.
We're like budget season, so,
Oh, no, I know.
yeah.
Cool.
That's why he
Yeah.
wants to do it now, so that we can.
Yep.
Get first in line.
Very good.
Is that good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I made the motion.
Okay, and I second it.
Okay.
And all in favor?
The ayes have it.
The ayes have it,
Yeah.
great.
Where is Paul?
I don't know.
But that always brings a different flavor to the discussion.
True.
So I think we move on to the motor vehicle.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy one.
Yep.
So this is the updated version?
I just revised it today because I didn't like the way it read before, so I would use today's revised 4/28/22. What this is, I guess, Sergeant, you give us the other one.
The very, very first one.
Yeah, so that was like a narrative of what the,
Correct.
Right.
That was the body of what Waterbury first started, because they're the first one in
Right.
the state to kind of incorporate this because of the overwhelming
Right.
irritations from citizens saying the same.
so what I did was peel off the stuff out of there that we would want to have in our ordinance. For instance, what you had was that in accordance with general statutes 14-12A2, a resident of the state who operates a motor vehicle on any highway shall be fined $1,000. That's a state statute. That's not
Yep.
going to be part of our ordinance.
Nope.
So I just took that kind of stuff off.
Perfect.
And so what I said was, what it does say is that notwithstanding any provision of the general statutes or special act and so forth, any municipality may by ordinance established by its legislative body,
Reading the same one, do I have the same one?
I'm looking at,
The 33122.
I'm reading an old, one. I'm reading
Oh,
something
okay,
else.
okay.
But it talks about,
That's the state.
Yes,
Right,
that's the state
law.
breakdown.
right,
State
and
law.
it says that any municipality may by ordinance do what I've done here.
Yeah.
And and what it does, it says what I've provided, any owner of a motor vehicle that is subject to property tax in the city of Torrington pursuant to subsection G of section 12-71B of the general statutes shall register such motor vehicle with the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles, provided such motor vehicle is eligible for registration and required to be registered under the provisions of Chapter 246 of the general statutes. The vehicle is eligible and required to be registered if garaged, stored, operated, or parked within the city of Torrington with plates issued from another state and/or the address on the out-of-state registration shows a Connecticut address. So that's what the law provides us permission to do. Now, so if you see a vehicle parked, I guess, anyway, I don't know, Sergeant, you know more than I mean, this will give you the opportunity, I would guess, if there's a vehicle that's parked with Florida plates, what do you do in that case?
Oh, gosh, I run into this all the time. I mean, your big offender is Maine.
Yeah.
Maine has a leasing company that I can actually order plates right now and have them delivered to my house.
PO box,
And
right?
actually, it's the leasing company in Maine.
Um,
They allow you to just give your information, but your mailing address is your house.
Okay.
So that Vermont is another one. You don't need a Vermont license. You don't need a Vermont, address. You can go up there with your Connecticut driver's license, register your car in Vermont, and you can put down your Connecticut address. There's no harm, no foul.
What, I might go to Vermont soon. Kidding.
Good.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna jot that.
That's being recorded. I'm sorry. I'm
So
kidding.
anyway, if there is such a thing, and they fail to do that, we would then be permitted to fine the owner not more than $250.
Correct. And right now, it's actually, so under state statute, it's a summons to court, which to me is, again, this is my personal feeling, it's excessive.
Put over.
It's extremely excessive, and you would burden traffic courts to no end.
Correct.
By writing summonses for the fact that you're avoiding property tax, because really that's ultimately what all you're doing. You're still paying a registration fee. You may have to get an inspection, you may have to get emissions. Massachusetts, I would never want to transfer there. They have 15 more rules than we have. So yes, that all they're doing is avoiding city or state taxes. That's the purpose of this, which is why that $250 fine seems to be the standard across the board when it comes to the ordinance.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be it says not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
So, and then any penalty for failure to pay the fine by a date prescribed by the city shall not exceed 25% of the original fine. So that's in the law as well. A first-time violator shall not be fined who presents proof of registration for such motor vehicle after the violation, but prior to the imposition of the fine. So if somebody can prove that they did it, they don't get fined. The provisions of the chapter shall be enforced by citation. Following persons have authority to do that. It would be the City of Torrington police officers and/or the zoning enforcement officer. And there are appeal processes, which we would use the appeal that the process that we used before.
Yep.
7-152C. So I mean, this covers all the bases that we're permitted to do, and it'll hopefully provide some revenue for the city once we get these
Agreed.
cars done.
Agreed. I think once they start to see that it's a realization and that you throw out a few of the citations, the city citations for the
Yeah.
ordinance violations. I think a few people get that. A few people don't take this lightly or just say, forget it. Yeah, you really can't do anything with it. Then I'll go back and write the summons to court and then see if it changes their mind. That'll get out and then people will start taking those ordinances more seriously.
All right, so are we in agreement? With the revisions that we
Yes.
made on the new one?
So can we, all right, so why don't we say this is okay, I'll clean it up, and this could be ready for a public hearing too, I
Well, that's
guess.
what I'm wondering. if
All
we
right,
could
so I'll
pass.
make a motion,
There you go.
if you're all right with it.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the motor vehicle, was it the motor vehicle registration? No, out-of-state motor vehicle registration ordinance as presented today by Corporation Council, and move to schedule a public hearing.
Okay, I'll second it. And all in favor?
Alright, studio.
Six to
One for
seven.
public.
Yeah, but, okay. All
Can we
right,
do a
great.
public hearing for each on the same day, or does it have to be two
It
separate
would be
days?
great on
Yeah,
the same
if we could
day.
do
So we can do it on the same day?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask Carol and I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, I don't know any reason why we couldn't have it on the same day.
I don't know all the
I
rules
don't
yet.
think these two are gonna draw hundreds or thousands of people
It's nearly
to.
the same one, the second,
It's
the one on the
that-
second, will.
Yeah.
The one on May
So I
2nd.
think these two can definitely be done on the same day. I don't think you're gonna have a huge draw.
It's the next one.
Yeah.
Great. Okay,
Yeah, the next one, I didn't really do much with it, except read it. I don't know, it looked okay to me.
Yeah, so, I mean, to be honest, I haven't had an opportunity to go back and finish my edits to this one. So what was originally presented was
yeah,
more kind of restructuring, adding some definitions, clarifying some information. So I guess like, but if that be the case where, so for example, changing the title from garbage, rubbish and refuse to solid waste. So my thought was if those kind of are acceptable, I'll go through the document, accept the changes and can just kind of highlight them where the changes are versus this type of document.
yeah.
And then finish the edits in regards to Article 2. Because I didn't get much past 128.6.
Yeah, and, I understand, I mean, budget season, I'm sure you're in. But I do feel at this point, we're in agreement, generally, with the definition changes. And Armand, you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
So, do you want to go through some of this, or do you want, I would prefer, I mean, you've got a lot of deletes, it's hard to really,
Right, and that's what I was hoping, if you're in agreement with the changes as presented from the last meeting,
right, and the deletes.
I will go back and clean it up, finish my edits, and then at a future meeting, would have a more final copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd make it easier to understand what.
Yeah.
Right, because there were a lot of moving
Yeah,
pieces.
right.
So it's almost like this will replace, so you're not
Right.
necessarily, so you're gonna replace the entire,
Yeah, see, that's the problem when I get into these, you remember when I did the sewers?
don't even go.
That was wholesale changes.
And that way.
So I think if the general agreement is the way, what was presented from last time, then I'll incorporate those changes, clean it up, make it easier to read. I can do a light highlight of the changes.
Yeah.
But the deletes, a lot of the deletes, because we moved them,
It would, yeah, that's what you've been doing, is moving stuff. around.
moving,
Yeah, yeah.
because, so like definitions, it's always been my thought that to be clearer throughout the chapter, all definitions are up front that cover the entire chapter
Good idea.
versus in each article having separate definitions.
I agree.
Because I think the interpretation is then that, well, these definitions only apply to this article,
Right.
not the entire chapter.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay. So if we're all in agreement with that, we'll set another agenda or another date for
To
maybe
review.
just this,
Yeah.
on the agenda. Because I think, it's gonna take a little more
Yeah.
time.
Well, I got roads, bridges and highways too.
Well, I don't care.
I want to change that one too.
Can we just get through this?
Let's stick
I have
to
I have the entire park ordinance if you want to go through that, just because that one I have to revamp, so I mean, listen, we want to keep you guys.
Yeah, but
busy.
doing
We don't
Dustin
want
and I, so we're gonna start at the beginning
to-
and we're just gonna go through each one.
Which I don't, and I think when Frank was sharing this, to his credit, I mean, he was in agreement. I mean, he went through all of the ordinances.
Systematically.
I think it's good. I think it just needs to be
Go through 'em and say-
refreshed with some, just current language, not, again,
Yeah.
obviously,
Not necessarily
society and life
significant
changes. Correct. It's just, it's refreshing it and making sure that we're up to date with everything going on in the world and that we're all kind of on the same page. Again, as patrons for the city and everything else, we want to make sure that everybody's kind of inclusive and that we're not excluding something or, making sure that it's clear that people
Yeah.
aren't like just mixed with things. I mean, we shouldn't be worried about peddlers or cobblers. I mean, we don't see a lot of people out on horseback right now cobbling shoes. That was in one of our original vendors.
Have you read the Connecticut State statute?
Well,
Yeah, all
I
right.
mean,
we'd like to see those reviewed as well, but I mean,
I
it's.
think it was Andrew Borback way back, when he said every time we pass a new law, we need to take.
We should take one away.
Take one
away.
And at one point, I think he was saying take 10 away.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. I mean,
It really, I think.
Not
that was-
unreasonable.
I've always felt the same way, so
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
I think it's great.
I agree.
And,
A little refreshing from time to time isn't a bad thing.
Okay. So basically, for number 4, I think we can move to just, where do I want to use
Table
this? Table it.
Yeah, and we'll revisit it.
Okay, do you want to move the table it?
Yeah, I'll move the table,
Second.
the
Um,
ordinance regarding garbage collection.
Second. All right,
Sounds good.
any other business by the committee members? Let's bring that road in. Then I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Get this out of here.
Scanning. Scanning without consent.
No, we can bring you.
No, we'll
You
bring
just need to go to the elevator?
So the elevator up, yeah.
Can we